Hello, my name is Scott Marat, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about after-action reporting. I'm a senior ESC, or Emergency Services Coordinator, with the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and my primary function is compiling and developing after-action reports for real events. And the reason I say real events is because we are also required to do after-action reports for exercises. But for the purposes of today's discussion, we're going to talk about after-action reporting for real incidents. Today, our objectives are going to be know and understand the statutes requiring AARs, know and understand the information required to be included in an AAR. I'm going to provide a graphical illustration of the increase in governor-proclaimed disasters since after-action reports were required. And then we're going to provide the location for a downloadable AAR template on the CalOES website. Why do an after-action report, you might ask yourself? Well, first and foremost, it's the law. There are several statutes pertaining to after-action reporting that make it a requirement for state agencies, local governments, and CalOES to submit an after-action report after a real event or a disaster. The first of those laws are the California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 2450 A and B. These are the reporting requirements for local government and state agencies. Government Code 8607F is the after-action reporting requirements for CalOES. And then the California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 2900 defines what's called the incident period, which is the clock that starts the timing of the after-action report submission. California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 2450A. The reporting requirements for any city and county, or county declaring a local emergency for which the governor proclaims a state of emergency, and any state agency responding to that emergency shall complete and transmit an after-action report to CalOES within 90 days of the close of incident period. California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 2450B. These reporting requirements pertain again to local government and state agencies, and it describes what should be contained at a minimum in an after-action report. The statute reads, "The after-action report shall, at a minimum, be a review of response actions taken, application of SEMS, suggested modifications to SEMS, necessary modifications to plans and procedures, identified training needs, and recovery activities to date." Government Code 8607F, After-Action Reporting. CalOES reporting requirements differ slightly than those for local government and state agencies. For CalOES, the OES shall, in cooperation with involved state and local agencies, complete an after-action report within 120 days of each declared disaster, and this report shall review public safety response and disaster recovery activities and shall be made available to all interested public safety and emergency management organizations. California Code of Regulations, Title 19, 2900 defines the incident period, which means the time interval during which the disaster-causing incident occurs. No state assistance under the Act shall be approved unless the damage or hardship resulted from the disaster-causing incident which took place during the incident period or was in anticipation of the incident. The incident period is determined by the director. Getting back to the reporting requirements mentioned earlier in the statute, I'd like to take this time now to go through each one and briefly describe what those requirements are. The after-action report shall, at a minimum, be a review of response actions taken, the application of SEMS, suggested modifications to SEMS, necessary modifications to plans and procedures, identifying training needs and recovery activities to date. So let's take a look at the first one, review of response actions taken. Response actions are important pieces of information to include in an AAR. Reviewing response actions memorialize the response for future reference, helps to identify lessons learned, and helps to discover actions that may help yours or other jurisdiction in future responses. And it also identifies potential gaps in resources and capabilities. Reviewing the application of SEMS helps ensure your jurisdiction is properly applying all the precepts of SEMS and where to make adjustments if not. Suggested modifications to SEMS. A quality AAR may identify needed modifications to SEMS. This will help make the system better for everyone who uses SEMS. During a disaster response or an exercise, it is imperative that jurisdictions evaluate the efficacy of their plans and procedures and make changes when necessary. This action is an integral part of the preparedness and exercise planning cycle as described in the illustrations above. With the push towards credentialing, identifying training needs is becoming more important than ever. Moreover, the success of field and EOC activities during a response is dependent on the quality and quantity of training each person receives prior to deployment. Documenting recovery activities that occur within the incident period serve to identify any needed changes in the IDE or initial damage estimate or the preliminary damage assessment process. Also identifies any issues in the coordination of opening a local assistance center or other individual assistance centers. It also determines the level of knowledge of the recovery process local officials possess. State of emergency proclamations for which an AAR was created 1993 to 2015. The following graph illustrates the number of proclaimed states of emergency during a particular year, again from 1993 to 2015. And as you can see by the graph, it shows a consistent increase from year to year in the amount of states of emergency the governor has proclaimed. We went from 1 or 2 in 1993 to 94 to as many as 9 or 10 in the last 2 years, 2014, 2015. And the reason that this illustration is important is it demonstrates the tremendously increased workload and a need to have the process be more efficient, especially when it comes to garnering information from operational areas and state agencies. With that in mind, what we need from OAs and state agencies is if you declared a local emergency and the governor also proclaimed a state of emergency, complete an after-action report as soon as possible. There's no need to wait for Cal OES to ask for your report. In the past, we would go through a formal request process, sending out an email with the template that I just mentioned. And a lot of times that request for information wouldn't go out for months or perhaps even as much as a year after the incident has occurred. And that caused a loss of valuable information. The illustration or the table that we just looked at regarding the number of AARs produced due to states of emergency proclaimed by the governor illustrates the tremendous increase in the amount of severe incidents that have occurred since 1993 to current. Unfortunately, we haven't had an increase in staffing levels to keep up with the increased pace of states of emergency and producing after-action reports. So with that in mind, what we're wanting or needing from operational areas and state agencies is to send us their after-action reports as soon as the incident is over for them. It's a pretty simple rule of thumb. If you declared a local emergency and the governor also proclaimed a state of emergency, complete an AAR as soon as possible. Don't wait for Cal OES to ask for your report. You can download the AAR survey from the Cal OES website at the following URL listed on this slide. If you're not able to remember that long URL, you can also just put After Action in the search bar on the Cal OES homepage, and it will give you a list of items for after action reporting. Just click on the very first one and you are on the page. This next slide indicates it's a picture of the actual web page that you'd be seeing when you hit that URL, and you can see at the very bottom of the slide the state agency AAR template or the local government AAR template and just choose the appropriate one. It also shows an address just above those two templates, the shared mail calaar@caloes.ca.gov. That is the email address that you can send the completed reports to. That is a dedicated mailbox, so you don't need to worry about whether or not there's a particular person there waiting to accept it. And if they end up leaving, you don't have to try and track down who might be handling that. So again, that's a dedicated mailbox. And as a conclusion, I'd like to say that the after action process is the capstone activity to all the effort we put into planning, organizing, equipping, training, exercising, and responding. The process helps us to develop a roadmap for improvement. The process identifies gaps in training, identifies gaps in our plans and procedures, identifies resource shortfalls, identifies capability shortfalls, and it also becomes an invaluable reference for future disaster response. To not fully engage in the after-action process is a disservice to all those who prepare for disasters and to all those who respond to disasters both at the field level and EOC. Most importantly, it is a disservice to the people of California who depend on us and expect us to do all we can to mitigate or eliminate the impacts of disasters. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Minimizing the AAR process has become the weak link that impedes substantive improvements to our disaster response and recovery efforts. That needs to change. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation, and we hope it is helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call at 916-845-8780 or contact me by email at scott.marat@caloes.ca.gov. Again, thank you very much.